Yeah, but I just want to play for you the sound from New York Governor Cuomo, because he said he needs money for his state to save New York from an economic tsunami. Take a listen to what he had to say.
We've been talking about funding for state and local governments, and it was not in the bill that the House is going to pass today. They said, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, the next bill. I said to my colleagues in Washington, I would have insisted that state and local funding was in this current bill, because I don't believe they want to fund state and local governments.
So Cuomo says he would have insisted on state funding in the last bill. And now Senator McConnell saying he wants to push the pause button. Yes. Was this a tactical mistake by you and Senator Schumer?
Just calm down. We will have state and local, and we will have it in a very significant way. It's no use going on to what might have been.
Welcome back. We're here with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and we've asked her to share something from her home for a little late show and tell. Speaker Pelosi, what have you found? What are you going to share with us from your home?
Chocolate.
Really?
Chocolate candy.
Oh, wow.
And this is something you can get through the mail.
Okay.
You never run out. Can I show you?
Me. Yeah, absolutely. This is the episode of Cribs I never knew I needed. Oh, my. Wow.
Other people in our family go for some other flavors, but chocolate, and then we have some other chocolate here.
For joining us on our show, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, everybody. Thank you for being here. We'll be right back.
So she's the one who's been engineering. If you're at home right now and you're afraid, why isn't the United States giving me a cash payment every month like the rest of the world is doing for their workers when the government tells their businesses they have to close down? The reason is because Nancy Pelosi. She's stopping it. Hey, why don't they give us health care like the rest of the world already has for when a pandemic hits? They don't have to worry about losing their health care in the middle of a pandemic. They already have a system that provides them health care. Why don't we have that? Nancy Pelosi. That's who's stopping. That's who's in the way. It's not Mitch McConnell. It's not Steve Mnuchin. It's Nancy Pelosi. And the Democrats will not call her out. Guess who calls her out? Jake Tapper.
Opening up the schools safely. If you don't open up the schools, you're going to hurt the economy significantly because lots of people can't go to work. Opening up the schools safely. If you don't open up the schools, you're going to hurt the economy significantly because lots of people can't go to work.
Pills? Are we taking crazy pills? Who knows? But a new Bloomberg interview was maybe one of the most bizarrely revealing pieces that I've read on what exactly is going on right now, where you can walk down the street and see a zombie wasteland and states are reclosing and schools are closing and business loss is accelerating and our nation's elite are all walking around like, this is fine. Journalist Max Abelson decided months ago to try to get a sense of how our nation's billionaires were coping with and thinking about the coronavirus crisis. So he called up his billionaire friend and he recorded his thoughts over these many weeks and months of pandemic and deaths and breadlines and protests. Let me just say, it's a pretty remarkable portrait. Let's go through a few of the highlights here. So here's how Mr. Billionaire responded when COVID was very first designated as a pandemic. What the F? I'm not worried, he said. I'm sure I already have it. What do I care? His family was heading to their country house outside New York City, but he was staying put, working the phones for his job, investing billions of dollars for clients. He didn't know much about the unfolding catastrophe, which made him just like everyone else. Now, the callousness of this statement is, of course, rather brazen. But what's also interesting about it is, on the one hand, you could say, wow, these supposed geniuses didn't really seem to have any special insights or knowledge here. We've had mass death and joblessness, and he didn't seem to see it coming. On the other hand, in a way, he actually did turn out to be completely right. He and his family had no reason to care, nothing to worry about. they would be fine in their country home and in all likelihood, though the article does not lay this out, only add even more bounty to their already outrageously bountiful wealth. Now, it's easy to be prescient and know how things will go when you are in that tiny class of people who is actually attended to, actually listened to, and catered to by our political institutions. Remember, political scientists have crunched the numbers and found that the sentiments of the average American do not sway public policy one tiny bit in this town, while the preferences and priorities of the rich have massive impacts. It's easy to predict the shots when you are calling the shots. In other words, it's easy to predict the shots when you are calling the shots. Now, this callous disregard and downplaying of the pandemic would be a consistent theme in the billionaires' reactions to rising cases, deaths of the elderly and vulnerable, mass uprisings, and all of the other events which have seemed to upend the entire world that we live in, rendering pre-COVID life almost inconceivable and unimaginably distant.
We've been talking about funding for state and local governments, and it was not in the bill that the House is going to pass today. They said, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry.
Whether it was... Right now, considering what's happened to the Postal Service, if someone said, should I go to the courthouse and vote early, which we're Northern Virginians, so this is something you could do, whether it's Fairfax County, Arlington County, or would you rely on the mail? What would you...
In 1917, they say, right? The great pandemic certainly was a terrible thing where they lost anywhere from 50 to 100 million people. Probably ended the Second World War. All the soldiers were sick. That was a terrible situation.
I believe them, and I respect them being able to tell their story and having the courage to do it.
Do you believe that the vice president should enter this race?
Oh, he's going to have to make that decision for himself. I wouldn't tell him what to do. Eva Patterson. Okay, so I say with all love and warmth that part of the concern also for people who are progressive thinking and liberal-minded, or just progressive thinking in terms of just fix it, is that we all have these posters in our closet that is attached to a stick that we sometimes will card out when we're talking about criminal justice policy and those statistics that you first heard when we opened it up, incarceration. And we run around with these signs, build more schools, less jails. Build more schools, less jails. And we walk around everywhere, build more schools, we protest, build more schools, less jails. Put money into education, not prisons. There's a fundamental problem with that approach, in my opinion. And it's this. I agree with that conceptually, but you have not addressed the reason I have 3 padlocks on my front door. So part of the discussion about reform of criminal justice policy has to be an acknowledgement that crime does occur, and especially when it is violent crime and serious crime, well, there should be a broad consensus that there should be serious and severe and swift consequences.
Money for healthcare. Money for housing. Money for healthcare. Not for me. Money for therapy. Not for me. Money for schools. Not for me. Money for health.
Sorry, but we're not sorry. Conversations with your fellow man. Not dogging him down and mocking him for his pain. Yes, sir. That's the shit right there. I guess the Boogaloo movement. I like it. The Boogaloo movement. So it's awesome.
Since we know how you really feel, it's how we feel. Fuck Donald Trump.